Good evening, everybody. We have participants slowly coming in for the night, which is lovely to see. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on this Wednesday night, which is beautiful outside on my end of the woods. So I hope you're all having a good evening as well. I might just wait a little bit while the participants enter. For everybody coming in this evening, tonight is the Getting Ready for School webinar. And it's helping families help their children be ready for school. So we're hoping to work in partnership with all our presenters this evening, yourselves, and any other support networks you have involved with your child on helping your child be ready for school. Sorry, let's get that. Before we go into acknowledgement to country, I will just let you know that we have quite a few presenters here this evening. I'm joined by my lovely colleague, Peter. Thank you, Peter, for joining tonight. And we also have Megan from Catholic Diocese of Parramatta, correct, Megan? That's yes, that's how I've said it properly. We have Diane here from the Australian Independent Schools, New South Wales. And then from Department of Education, we have a few panellists, but presenting will be Wendy and Victoria. And then we have Chris and Catherine who are joining them for this evening as well. Each of the presenters will introduce themselves further when they come around to sharing their slides with you and their valuable information this evening as well. So I will go back into our slides and we will start the evening. Peter, if you could kindly do our acknowledgement to country, please.
Sure, thanks, Belinda. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining this webinar from the country of the Darug people, who are the traditional owners of this land. I also recognise the traditional owners of the countries from where you all joined today and the First Nations people present in this webinar. I'd like to pay my respects to all elders past, present and emerging. Thanks.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, so just to go through a little bit of housekeeping tonight for our participants. Tonight will be recorded, so if you have to leave early or if there's any information that you do miss, you are welcome to contact Early Ed at the services at Early Ed email, which Peter will kindly put in the chat throughout the night to ask for the recording, and we can share that with you. In terms of the functions, please only use the chat if there are any technical difficulties that you might be having. So something like sound or if you're asking about poor internet connection, we can have someone communicate with you through the chat to let you know. Peter has just used the chat to put the services at Early Ed email. So any information Peter's sharing will be done through the chat as well. There is also a Q&A function. There should be one there, where any questions that you might have for the panellists, you can put in there. And the panellists will be checking that throughout the evening, as will Early Ed, as will Peter and I. So we will answer some questions as the night is progressing. There will also be time at the end of the webinar for Q&A as well. So you are welcome to continue adding those questions in, and whatever isn't answered might be addressed hopefully at the end of the evening. Further, if your questions are still unanswered, either Peter or myself will follow that up either the end of this week or next week to answer your questions as well. We will be running 2 polls, very short questions, just to determine the success of the information that we've shared with you tonight to help see where you are at the beginning of the webinar and see how that has progressed by the end of the webinar. So Peter will be launching those throughout the night as well. Before the Q&A, Peter will also be launching a feedback survey. It's really important that you complete that. It takes less than 4 minutes. And we will do that while the Q&A is going through, so you won't miss out on anything. Because that makes sure that what we're presenting to families in the future as well is continuously improved and worked on, and we're catering for our target audience, which is our families wanting to support their children be ready for school. So we will be asking you to do that survey. So for tonight's presentation, the format will be as follows. I'm going to give you a little bit about transition to school generally and helping your children be ready for school and learning. We will run the first poll. Then we will hear from our wonderful guest presenters from all the systems that I just spoke about. Peter will run the second poll, and then we will finish off the night with the Q&A. Okay, so Peter, can I ask you to launch the first poll, please? So you should see that on your screen. How confident do you feel at the moment in preparing your child to start school? Whether they're starting school next year or the following year, how confident are you feeling in preparing your child for this? Okay, great. We've got a great number of families confident and some who are still not yet confident, and that's fine. That's great, because hopefully tonight we will get the not confidence more into the confidence, and the confidence feeling very confident. Okay, so I think we can end that poll, Peter. Looks like most people have answered, and if we share results, we've got 70%, 76% confident and 24% not confident. So thank you very much. So the purpose of tonight's evening is to understand ways to help your child transition to school. So how can you be helping them be ready to learn? To receive up-to-date information from school systems to support this process of transitioning and being ready for learning at school, and to know what supports are available to you and how to access these supports as well. Okay, one of the first things I want to share with you is the idea of the team around the child. So this process doesn't leave you on your own, to let you know that there is a team that can support you and your child in this process. At the center of the team is your child. But around that, we have our purple circle, and that is that of the family. So obviously you are the key people in your child's life. You are the ones who are going to be making the decisions ultimately as to whether or not your child will be starting school. So you're very central to this process. Supporting you is the general community. So that community can be extended family, it can be friends, it can be the school community for sure. It can be your early childhood centre if your child is at a long daycare or preschool. It can also be possibly health nurses if you've got any health medical practitioners involved as well. So there's quite a few people in the team around the child, in the family and the community. The overall, another overarching circle is that of your early intervention team. And that can be any therapist, if you have any involved with your child, from behaviour, family support workers that you might have, whether it's OTs, psychologists, speech pathologists or special educators as well. And the idea is that we are all working together around your child. So your child is the focus. We have shared goals, shared intentions, and that is about preparing you and your child to be ready for learning. So when we talk about preparing you families, obviously it's how we can build your skills and your capacity to do what you need to do for your child. So when we're talking about being ready for school, yes, our child is central to that. The transition to school is such a big process and it's a lifelong process. It doesn't just start and end before starting and enrolling and starting school. Transitions and being ready to learn are continuous for the child's learning journey. Continuous for life, really. But in terms of learning and school, it's continuous throughout their journey. They can transition from class to class. They can transition from school to school if you move or make choices to change your child's school around. They can transition from grade to grade. There's so many transitions that happen. So it's about preparing your child for that transition to be as smooth as possible. And for it to be smooth as possible, we need open communication and partnerships with all of these people in the blue circles. Your child is central, yes, but we want the family to be ready as well. Do they have the knowledge, the skills, and the confidence to help their child be ready to learn? Do they have the resources, the support? What more can we provide for our families to be ready to help their child be ready? We need a ready early childhood service. So like I said, if they go to preschool or long daycare, are they ready? Are they really familiar with your child's learning needs in that social context? So different to the learning needs in a home and a family context. Are they preparing your child for that in that social context to get used to or to be ready to transition as smoothly as possible for a larger social context of school, of kindergarten? We need our school to be ready. Is the school ready? Have they met your child? Have they gotten to know your child through orientation? Are there any special learning needs or particular things about your child that are worth sharing with the school so that they are ready to teach and your child and ready to support your child in their learning journey? And then ready community as well. Oh, I'm sorry. So have your team around the child build your capacity. Are they available to support the school? Are they available to support the early childhood school centres in preparation for school? And are they available to support the school as well as your child gets used to a new learning environment, a new way of learning, a new situation, a new transition for them to go into? So there's lots of things to consider when we're looking at having your child be ready for school. In terms of other resources that might be available, you will come across quite a few tonight as the presenters share their slides and information with you. But here are some other resources that you can access to help you on this journey as well. And Peter will be putting those links in the chat so you can have them as well to look at in your own time. Raising Children Network, they have valuable information on there. Reimagine Australia, they have a few booklets that you can access as a family, booklets that schools and early childhood centres can access. And if you do have any early intervention workers with your child, there's also booklets that they too can access. And it's about supporting your child be ready for school as well. Early Ed have a website and it's called the Ready to Learn Together project. And on that website, there's numerous short, family-friendly tips on how you can support your child be ready for school. And these tips were put together by surveying hundreds of families as well as school teachers, early childhood teachers, and community workers on what they thought might have been the gap in their child's readiness. From those surveys, we were able to prioritise key areas, and a lot of them were around knowing what's available in school, knowing how to manage lunches, knowing how to manage belongings such as their bags, how to pack their bag, carry their bag, making friends, asking for help, being ready in terms of routines and clothes. So a lot of short tips are available on that website. There's also print and short videos in multiple languages, multiple community languages. So feel free to share that as well. And finally, Inclusion Together. Inclusion Together is a website that provides, again, written and video information on how the team around the child can work together on shared goals and how to take you through that journey as well to facilitate inclusion of your child. Ask for help if you're concerned. Who can you ask help from if you don't have a team that directly supports your child or yourself? If your child does go to a childcare centre, a long daycare, preschool, family daycare, occasional care, ask their opinions. They know your child in a social context. They can give you a different perspective. So feel free to ask them. Also, if you have any early childhood or community health nurses, as you can see down the bottom, you can also ask for their opinion as well. Please don't feel like if you have younger children here today, 3 as well as 4 and 5-year-olds, continue seeing the community health nurse. Continue looking through that blue book and continue those developmental checklists. It will just keep you on track and help you identify things along the way if needed. The early childhood approach through NDIS, if you have any developmental concerns or if your child is diagnosed with a disorder or disability, you can apply through NDIS, 1, either for funding, or 2, just to get some early support. So your child may not necessarily be eligible for funding, but may be eligible for some support. If in doubt, contact your early childhood planners and make those inquiries. They will guide you further. I can't see my 2 bottom dots, Peter. I'm wondering if you can help me because my bar is there. I know local schools is one of them. Ask your local school during the orientation process or even before the orientation process when you're querying about enrolment. You can ask your schools for tips or advice or suggestions or guidelines as well.
Local Start Strong funded services.
Thank you. Thank you. So Start Strong funded services are through, it's a program that is funded by Department of Education. And the core objective of Start Strong are to have support people available to help. Early Ed is one of the Start Strong providers, just so you have an idea, to help 3-year-olds access early childhood and education care services and to help 4-year-olds access these as well, so that they are prepared as much as possible with support, educational experiences, community activities, and understanding the importance of play to help your child's development and be ready for school. So, as I said, Early Ed is one of the Start Strong providers. You can access these services through our website. You can talk to Early Ed about any concerns you may have in relation to your child's development, and we can assist with that process of starting school or starting preschool or early or long daycare if that's where you're at in your journey. We also have some free resources that are available to help you with play ideas and activities, give you opportunities to support your child learn through play, and to help you understand how to help your child as well in the process of being ready for school. So some of these free resources are Learn to Play or Play to Learn. They give you free or low cost, so no cost or low cost ideas on how to use home and natural resources and routines to create learning through play. Active play, active learning is the same idea, but it's using outdoor parks and outdoor environments to promote that play through learning and how you can do that. Ready to learn through story time. So if finding that your child is struggling with things like concentration and attention, maybe following instructions, we can offer up to 3 free sessions to support your child with those areas through story time. So those sessions are either online or at our Marylands office. But if you are interested, you can contact Early Ed to make some inquiries about them. Our Cubby House Toy Library is based at Forestville, but it does have some online borrowing resources if you wanted some play resources. Every Thursday, we run a free online story time. It's interactive. I believe it goes for roughly 20 minutes. It's quite entertaining. It uses visual songs. It's got a structure involved to it, and it also is followed up with an activity relevant to the story. So that's something you might be interested in. And then target word is if your child is 2.5 years of age, younger than 2.5 years of age, and is a slow communicator. So they need to have some level of communication, but are slow communication developers and have not yet started an early childhood service. This is a free 8-week program or 6 weeks. I'm sorry, my memory doesn't serve me well, but it starts with a 1-to-1 goal setting session. Then there's some group sessions in the middle, and it ends with a 1-to-1 session as well. And that's very, very valuable, and we've been able to offer that for free through Start Strong. And My Time is a supportive play group for families who have children with developmental concerns or disabilities to get together. Their children play, so it's a physical support. Their children play while the families are supported with our family support worker or sometimes special educator. So I've already spoken about our Ready to Learn Together website. Please feel free to access that. As I said, there's multilingual resources. They're in print and in videos. So very, very valuable, and they're short. So it's easy to read and understand. But we're going to go over to our presenters tonight. I have introduced them by name, but I'm going to let them introduce themselves before they do their presentation. We will be starting with Department of Education, then we will have our Australian independent schools, and then we will be completed with our Catholic schools. So if I can start with our Department of Education team to introduce themselves, and I will get their slideshow ready, please.
Good evening, parents. My name is Victoria Lynch, and Wendy Griffiths and myself will share with you what the New South Wales Department of Education can offer to support your child for a successful transition to kindergarten. When our slides are up, I'll start with country. We recognise the ongoing custodians of the lands and waterways where we work and live. We pay respect to elders past and present as ongoing teachers of knowledge, songlines and stories. We strive to ensure every Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander learner in New South Wales achieves their potential through education.
So while we talk a lot tonight about readiness for school, there is another aspect, and I'll leave it to the co-presenters to talk more about how to get your child ready for school. One of the ideological shifts has been towards, is the school ready for my child? So while we do want our children to come to school prepared and confident and able to navigate that very big world that is a primary school, we also want to make sure that the school knows how to support your child, and you are the best source of information for that. Next slide. There are some prior to school programs that you may like to consider. This is on the handout that you will receive, I think, by email. Things that can happen from the age of 3 to support children with particular disabilities or who need additional support. I'll let those speak for themselves, but one of the resources is from the Department of Education is our transition teacher, who is Coralie Pratt. Coralie will go to your child's preschool and have discussions with them, observe your child, and talk about readiness for school or additional supports that may be needed. She's a fabulous resource, and her email address will be in the handout. Next slide.
Transition to school statement. Early childhood educators will complete the sections A, B, and C, and you will complete sections D with your family details, section E, expectations for your child, their interests and strategies to support their learning, and section F, consent for the information to be passed on to the primary school.
Could I just add that this document is not compulsory for private preschools and daycare centres, but many of them use it anyway to assist you in gathering information to hand on to the school. Government preschools are obliged to do this form, but it's a very, very good, concise form to have, and you can request that.
Next slide. All right, so to find out who your local school is, on the department website, there is such a thing as School Finder. And if you put in primary school, click primary school, and then put in your address and search, it will let you know what your local school is. Once you know your local school, it is advisable to contact the principal or the administration staff and have an initial conversation with the school with regard to your student enrolling. Once you have done that, there will be an online application for you to complete. Throughout the application, you will be given prompts to inform the school of your child, which will include, are there any learning disabilities or special circumstances such as behaviour plans, healthcare plans, or emergency response plans that you have for your child. The more information the school receives regarding your child, the better the transition to kindergarten will be, so that prior adjustments can be made.
The Best Start Kindergarten assessment starts when your child starts school. I know schools organise it differently. Many schools stagger the start of the students so that the teacher has some one-on-one time with your child to get to know them and to understand where they're at. It's not a test, it's called an assessment, but it's not a test. It's an opportunity for them to learn and understand your child, learn about and understand your child, and make sure that any needs that are identified can be met. The next slide, it refers back to Belinda's slide about the team around your child. And once you get to school, you're adding a layer to that. You're moving beyond the early intervention team, and now you're moving into the team around the child within the school. So there are lots of resources available. There's in-school specialist support, there are school counsellors, learning and support teams, principals, school staff, your teacher, all of those people. Then the additional supports sit around that, and we refer to that as the team around a school. Victoria and I are part of that team, and we can work with schools to offer additional support or additional resources to support students, particularly if there's a disability, but all students we're available for. It's not the student that we work with particularly, it's the school. Thank you, Belinda, or Peter, whoever's driving. Oh.
Is this me?
So the program, No, it's me. Sorry.
That's right.
Look, I think I just spilt over into this. One of the things that is helpful for schools is to provide some additional funding, and that comes through what we call IFS, that's Integration Funding Support Program. So if your child does have a disability, but you would like them in mainstream, and that's, you know, more and more prevalent, and they are more than welcome to be in mainstream schooling, the school can apply then for integration funding support so that there is additional staffing to support your child and work with them. There are also itinerant support teachers, particularly for vision and for hearing, and that can be allocated to the school. Their role is not necessarily to teach your child, but to work with the teacher of your child and the school of your child to make sure that they are well resourced and know well how to support your child. The other resource is in other schools, or in particular support classes within a mainstream school. So if your child does have a disability, make an appointment as soon as possible. Probably last term would be good, but now to have a discussion with your local school principal about what supports your child will need and whether you're considering either a support class. So that would be a class, depending on what the disabilities are. It might be a class of 7 or 10 with 2 staff members who would support students who have a similar disability. And that's within a mainstream school. And then there are opportunities to integrate and do things with the mainstream school as well. There are also special schools for students who have very high needs. If you think your child may be in that category, talk to the principal as soon as possible. The other reason to talk to the schools earlier rather than later is that there may be some infrastructure changes that need to be made, and we need to know about those as early as possible. Your child may need some ramps in the school or some rails to help them navigate the school playground. They may need some special equipment. All of that takes time to do. You know, Department of Education is a big machine, and takes some time to put those processes in place. So talk now with your school if you think that's going to be the case. If the school are looking, or you are looking for additional support in terms of that IFS, that integration funding support, or in terms of a specialist setting or a special class within a mainstream school, we'll have a look at the next slide. There is a process called access request. You don't fill this form in, the school does, but you need to provide the information. So you need to have that interview with the principal to discuss what the options might be, and for them to complete this form. So go armed with as much information as you can, medical reports, reports from preschools, as much as you've got. And they will also want to meet your child too. That's an important part of the process. That's not to say that we want your child to be in a special class or a special school. They are more than welcome to be in the mainstream, and they will be catered for and they will be cared for. It's a family choice.
Once your child begins kindergarten, there is a nice transition from preschool to kindergarten. So majority kindergartens, it's still the basis of learning is through play-based learning, and then they ease into some form of structure. So kindergarten, there is structure, but there is still a lot of play. So don't expect your child to feel like they're going to come home with homework or feel like your child's falling behind or anything. It's the most important thing is that they start to develop relationships and get used to the school environment.
I think it's interesting with those quotes that, you know, as far back as Plato, he's quoted as saying, "Do not keep children to their studies by compulsion, but by play." And that is how we assist our children to learn.
Yeah, we want them to enjoy school and to develop that sense of belonging to school. So the core focus in kindergarten, your child will further develop their skills in these areas, developing positive and trusting relationships with staff and peers. I find that's one of the most important things for every student from kindy to year 12. If they don't have a sense of belonging with relationships, they will find school very difficult. Making and sustaining friendships, practicing social communication skills and problem-solving skills through play-based learning in pairs and small groups, following routines and rules, class and school-wide. That's also quite important because, you know, school is quite routine-based. Being part of a large group, sharing materials and detention and taking turns. Becoming increasingly independent, separating from parents, carers, and taking care of own belongings. Do suggest that you start to think of a drop-off scenario, even practice that with your children before kindergarten, and make sure that you're prepared too. If you're going to turn up to drop off or, you know, emotional, the children will pick that up. Your son or daughter will pick that up and start to feel emotional too, and feel your anxiety. So prepare yourself also for, you know, that separation at school. Adapting to large groups in the playground at assembly time, attending and responding to stories and completing tasks, and developing early literacy and numeracy concepts and fine motor skills. Every child develops at their own level. It's not a competition, and there's a lot of you want a positive praise along this process as well that teachers will give, but we want collaborative language at home as well. If you have any questions, about your child's learning or development, always discuss with the teacher and the school initially. Okay. Okay, what to expect in the first few weeks of school. Your child may be excited, tired, grumpy, happy, upset, sick, confused, or they might just go with the flow. These are all normal emotions, and the best thing you can do as a parent is just to listen, but support the positive transition. Don't enable the anxiety or the grumpiness or, you know, the feeling sick, because we don't want to teach them learned behaviors that if they go to you and go, oh, I can't do this, that you won't make them attend school. It is all normal. How can we support our child as they transition to school? Clear the calendar for a couple of weeks. You may have outside sport or tutoring or stuff like that. I do suggest maybe just for the first few weeks of school that we put all that on hold, because when they come home, they're going to be tired and they need that time just to calm down. Let them speak about their day too. Let them tell you all about their day. Provide opportunities for downtime and fun activities. So what I was just saying before, just, you know, let them have that downtime. That might be, you know, as I said, talking to you, maybe a little game or something, you know, definitely something to eat when they get home, a drink. But yeah, try and realize that they're going to be quite sensory overloaded on a lot of areas. Don't ask too much about their day. Let them speak to you. Let them share as much as they want. You may find they might first come home and not want to share much at all, but, you know, about, you know, 7:30 at night or 7 at night, they're going to want to share everything to you. And that's usually around bedtime. Manage separation anxiety, hand them over and trust. So as I said, once again, make sure you're prepared for the handover, because if you're prepared, that transition is going to be a lot better for your child.
5 minutes.
It is a very difficult thing, I think, to manage that separation anxiety, because very often it's us that have the anxiety as much as the child, us as parents. And I know I found it very difficult to separate from my children, and what if they're sad, and what if something happens and I'm not there to pick them up. And the best thing you can do is hand them over with trust to those teachers that they will care for them, they will look after them. And if things are disastrous, they will let you know. They will talk to you, they'll contact you. very often that for those who do struggle with separation anxiety, that can, look like a terrible situation of screaming at the gate. And within 5 minutes, the child's settled, distracted and ready to get on with their day. While ever you're there, they still think feel that there's an opportunity to go with you, that you'll relent and take them home. So as hard as it is, if your child is one of those who finds it difficult to separate from you, give them a kiss, make it routine, and walk away. Hand them over to the teacher, let the teacher know that they're struggling, and walk away. Very difficult to do. And the last thing I'd like to say is look after you. This is a major shift, not only for your child, but particularly if this is your first child and you haven't been down this road before. It's quite a wrench to let your child go and be in the hands of someone else 5 days a week. So look after you, plan something for that first day or for that first week. Meet up with some friends and have a coffee, do something so that you're not at home on your own feeling very sad. You might also be doing cartwheels down the street thinking this is a great moment, and good on you if that's how you're feeling, and good on your child if they're feeling that way too. I know one of mine got out of the car and wondered why I would be coming into the school. I'm all right, Mum, go home. That was pretty disappointing too. But do look after you. You're very important in this process, and you need to be calm and ready to face the next day. Any questions, you can contact your local school services team from anywhere in New South Wales, or particularly the Macquarie Park office for areas from Gordon, North Sydney, over to the beaches. Those are the phone numbers. And we'll leave, I know our colleagues, our co-presenters will be talking a lot about play-based learning, and they'll be talking a lot about school readiness, which are very important things as well. What can you do to prepare your child? So we look forward to that part of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy and Victoria, for that valuable information. And I just want to point out the valuable points you made, that being ready for school is not just about reading, writing and math. It's so much more. It's all that social, emotional readiness that needs to be prepared for as well, because that transition from preschool to school is smooth, but preschool is a ratio of 1 to 10 in a small environment. The child's then going to a classroom, which can be 1 to 20 or 1 to 30. And then from the classroom, they're going to a playground, which is 1 to however many kindergarten students there are in a playground, or integrated right into the big school. So those skills, other than the reading, writing, maths, are so equally important, if not more important, to prepare. And I think that our next two presenters are going to take those things even further. So I'd like to introduce Diane from the Australian Independent Schools to take on our next slideshow, please.
Thank you, Belinda. And hello, everyone. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we're meeting today, and pay my respects to any Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander people who are here with us today. I'll just get my slides up here. Oh.
You're on mute, Diane.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened there. Did you hear my acknowledgement? I hope. Thank you. As I said, I'm Diane Hook from the Association of Independent Schools. I work as an education consultant on the Student Services team, and we support schools to support students in all areas of diversity. I'm so pleased to be with you this evening. I thought I'd first quickly recap some information you may already know about applying for an independent school, but then focus on orientation for your child and for yourselves, as well as what starting school might be like for your children. First, An independent school, we are obliged by the same legislation and the same regulations that the department schools and Catholic schools have in New South Wales. But we are independent, autonomous, and most of the schools are accountable. They are all accountable to their school boards. They have their own individual school policies, and there's a variety of services and resources. So each school is quite different. We have affiliations, a variety of religious affiliations, philosophical affiliations. If you're looking for a school, an independent school, you could go to our website here, and we do have a schools finder, much like you do in the department schools as well. You can search for the type of school and the region that you'd be looking for. You'll come up with particular schools. So to enroll in an independent school, it's a little bit different to maybe the other sectors. You contact the school directly and engage directly with the principal. I guess moving into the important information for today, share as much information as you can with the school, because they would like to support your student in the best way possible to have a really successful start to school. So be proactive, meet with the school very early. Share that information that you have with them and ask questions, because you are looking at the school as much as the school is looking at your child. There's a variety of different individual planning and plans to take account of. So you might be talking to the school about any healthcare needs that your child might have, any attendance planning, which probably doesn't often happen in kindies. If there's any behavior support planning or risk assessment, or even curriculum planning. And what we're really looking at though today is transition planning. So that transition process will vary from school to school, but will include the regular transition process for all children, as well as additional visits and times to enable possibly your child and family, school staff to meet one another on a variety of occasions. And as a family, you can support your child's transition to school through gradual exposure. It might look like looking at pictures of the school on the school's website, maybe building up to driving past the school, wandering around the school, outside the school, pointing out various aspects of the school, just becoming familiar with the school environment. You may also want to ask the school to provide further resources to you about their expectations, their values, maybe some photos of the teachers and the classroom environment as well. And you might have extra orientation visits as well. So orientation is really about preparation and finding the best direction, both for your child and for you as parents, as other speakers have already said. Planning for as smooth a transition as possible, it's a big part of getting ready for school. How can you do that? Well, you can orient your child to school. Some of those things by practicing opening a lunchbox, maybe for those food packages, can be really tough. I know some parents might put a little cut in the top of the bag to make it a little bit easier to get into as well.
5 minutes.
Okay, really? Okay. The drink bottle as well. Preparing those personal care skills and dressing themselves. Teaching your child how to use the community toilets as well might be a way. Wearing their uniform and school shoes around the house. Maybe those listening games and calming techniques as well. Practicing those, maybe reading books together prior to school. Collecting visuals as well about routines and those checklists. So orienting yourselves as parents and carers as well in terms of what is school. What are the expectations of this particular school in kindy class? What does the structure of the day look like? And what does it mean? What are NESA outcomes? And what does the academic agenda look like? NESA, the New South Wales Education Standards Authority, those outcomes and content, that drives the school agenda quite often, which makes it a little bit different to preschool, where your child may have come from. So teachers might be expected to progress their classes of students through the curriculum. So the structure of the day is really timetabled around subject learning. However, there's some wonderful events as well that come up through the timetable that are other transition points possibly for your child. Swimming carnivals, assemblies, maybe chapel, religious studies, maybe book week as well. Those are also programmed into the timetable. So it's worthwhile knowing when those events might happen at your school, and maybe preparing your child with them for those as well. Some of that key terminology that you might familiarize yourself with are things like key learning areas, KLAs, which are basically subjects. Early stage 1 is the syllabus that's taught in kindergarten in schools. Some of you or your children might have an individual plan or an individual education plan as well. And you might become familiar with some of the learning support and the learning support staff as well at school. Literacy and numeracy, your English and maths studies. I can't emphasize enough, as has been emphasized already, the importance of those social emotional competencies as well. All how to regulate oneself, how to name emotions as well. Communication is schools communicate with families in a variety of ways. So some of the questions you might want to explore are, how will I receive information about my child's day at school? How can I communicate well with my school? What can I do if I'm not happy with something? Finding out who to communicate with and about particular matters will save time and ensure your questions are promptly attended to as well. And what is the preferred mode? Is it email? Is it maybe Seesaw or another app? Is it phone conversations? Is it in person? And then following the school process for communication is always appreciated as well in the busyness of the school days. So have you ever been to a completely different country where the cultural norms, the expectations and environments, including even how the day might be divided, is completely different to yours and what you know? Well, kindy is a little bit like that for your child. And there's so much for them to learn. All those new routines and procedures, new expectations of behavior, how to share attention with lots of other children, eating at set times of the day, raising their hands to speak, getting up early even when they might be tired as well, adjusting to different teachers' expectations, for example, a different teacher for visual arts or music, if those are offered at your child's school, maybe for sport as well. And it's often pretty warm when school goes back, making it a little bit harder to concentrate sometimes. So, as has been emphasized through others as well, it's often your children may be very tired, especially in those first 5 weeks of school. So consider putting some of those therapies and extracurricular activities on hold, as has been said already, for that first term, so they're not overloaded. Consider allowing a rest day if they're super tired and very cranky when they're tired. Consider cutting back on the busy home routines just to allow more downtime and more playtime as well, so your children can process those experiences, and to sleep and to have healthy meals as well. But enjoy this special time with your child. They will grow, develop, change, and just be absolutely delightful. I think we've talked about some of these resources as well. So please, some of the key takeaways are right here. say thank you. Thank you for tonight and all the best with your beautiful children.
Thank you so much, Diane. That was really valuable as well. And one of the key points that you raised that I wanted to reinforce was the partnership, the importance of the families to ask questions as much as sharing information. Families, please don't feel that holding back any information that you think it's worth sharing with the school. Please don't feel that holding back would be for the benefit of the child in case the school doesn't want them or can't support them or anything like that. Information is power, and the more information the school has, the more ready they are for your child, just like they want as much information and your child to be ready for them. So it is a really important partnership. Diane, thank you for reinforcing that as well in your early point. We have noticed that there are not any questions yet from the participants, so hopefully we're giving you the information that you need. We recognise that Zoom might have updated, so I hope you can all see the Q&A option on your bars. Otherwise, maybe jump across to the chat if you do have a question and we can look at it that way. Just wanted to let you know that there is an option for you to use the chat for questions if you can't find your Q&A function. But now I would like to hand you over to Megan. I'll let her introduce herself and go ahead with her slides. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you so much, Belinda, and good evening, everyone. And I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I am currently located, the Darug people, and pay my respects to Indigenous elders past, present and emerging. Thank you for joining us tonight. And it's a lot of information. And if this is your first child, it's a very big step in a very big journey that in the blink of an eye can be over, and you could be starting to explore universities before you know it. So enjoy these early formation years. They do go by quite quickly, but, you know, please do ask any questions if any come to mind. So I'll just begin sharing. And I know Belinda's touched on this briefly already in some of the other presentations, but as part of Catholic Schools Parramatta Diocese, I work for the Inclusive Learning Team. So we support all of our schools around transition planning for students transitioning into school, as well as between primary and secondary, as well as students with diverse learning needs. So children with disability who require additional supports. So getting ready for school is a very big thing for a lot of our children that we work with. And I know it's been touched on already, but the importance of play and how critical that can be. So when children are playing, they're more themselves than at any other time. They have some control over what's happening in that space, as opposed to a teacher directing very specific learning on a very specific topic. So it's very much an age-appropriate way for children to learn and begin their learning journey. They start to make sense of the world around them and engaging with people and different resources in different ways. So engaging with your child at play at home is one of the best ways to start preparing them for school. Now, play-based learning really contributes to the social and emotional development of a child. The benefits of play teaches them cooperation skills, how to build relationships, that important skill of negotiation. Some of them feel like they're master negotiators, but I guess more strategic preparing around how we negotiate. It teaches them problem-solving skills as they're working with different, I guess, equipment, materials. It teaches them empathy. That helps them to build resilience and confidence. It helps them to build some self-regulation skills when things don't go wrong, and knowing that it's okay when things don't go right, and knowing it's okay when things don't go right. It encourages children to take risks, and we know taking risks with learning is an important skill. So that's where they begin to start learning those early skills of risk taking and turn taking, specifically when they're working with their peers and with teachers. Those positive chemical channels within the brain and brain development are strengthened, and it allows them to explore different options and solutions as they're playing with different materials and resources. The benefits of play on language development are really important too. They refined those speech sounds that they begin to start learning through listening to others. They learn how to interact and the opportunity for engaging in conversations about shared experiences. So those beginning conversations around, can I have a turn? My turn, please. Provides a context for it to be asked about what they can see, what they can hear, what they can smell, what they can feel, tapping into all of their senses around their learning. It's also a really important opportunity to build vocabulary, teach them new words and names of things. Quite a lot of the time when we're reading to children, those things that they have heard through play are things that they start to learn about through those early learning skills in a kindergarten classroom. The benefit of play on the cognitive development of a child, it teaches them some independent thinking. It teaches them how to prioritize what to do first, what to do next. Play-based learning really helps to develop that attention and focus that children need when they start school, to be able to sit and attend to something for a period of time. That's where they start to learn that and develop that skill through play initially. It teaches them to be curious and inquire about how things work, and why things do the things that they do. So those initial inquiry skills that we like to develop throughout the curriculum as they go through primary school begin with play. It helps them to make connections and see sense within their world and the things around them. So they can make connections between things that they go past in a park and a playground. Oh, I have that in my backyard too. We played with that. Oh, the sand is at the beach, but I have a sand pit at home. It teaches them how to be creative. Lots of different craft and art activities. Children can explore and become more creative learners in that space. It improves skill acquisition. Example, counting pegs on the clothesline, counting the number of socks as they're bundling them up. Play at home provides children with a safe environment to take risks. It's an opportunity to explore their areas of personal interest and engagement if they love dinosaurs. It allows them that time and space to explore, discover, question, and appreciate everything that is so unique, special, and different within their world. So that is a lot that they're learning and developing within their brain just through simply play-based learning. The benefits of play on physical development, especially if it's outdoor play and we're getting up and moving around, and also the fine motor, as you can see on the screen there, that manipulation of Play-Doh and making letters and words. The outdoor play really encourages kids to be more active. We know how important physical development is on a child, but that balance between work and home and school and the importance of physical exercise on the developing child. That physical activity also teaches them really important gross motor skill development, the running, jumping, catching, throwing, those sorts of play at home. Start obviously with very small softballs, or bigger softballs, going to smaller softballs before going into anything more complex, but just the skills of balancing and running and jumping. Fine motor skills, cutting, threading, using pegs to pinch and grip, are really important skills to teach them those fine motor skills that they're going to need when they're holding a pencil or when they're beginning typing, using scissors at school. It helps them to develop those coordination skills that they will need across their schooling life, engaging in various aspects of the curriculum. The physical activities and those fine motor activities all improve their strength and their agility. The reason around manipulating things like Play-Doh, periods of the day where they're writing for long periods of time or holding a pencil, we're building that strength and capacity to be able to do that. Physical activities, as we know, develop a core strength. We have kids sitting, you don't want them laying on the floor in the classroom all day long. There are times when they need to sit up, and we know how important posture is. So developing that core strength is really important for a young growing child. And finally, balance. Lots of different balance activities, balancing on one foot, then on the other, walking on a straight, like a footpath on a line, one foot in front of the other, and working on balance skills. All of these skills that we've just talked about are really critical skills that are needed, not just for school, but for lifelong learners. They are skills that develop over time and do require nurturing and development from parent carers as well as educators, and in some cases, occupational therapists and physiotherapists, depending on the child's need. Now, something called parallel play. Parallel play is the beginning of play. It's an important step in building communication skills and enabling children to begin that process of interacting with others without any pressure of playing directly together. So that's parallel play is simply two children, as you can see in the picture, sitting side by side, playing with some of the same toys, but they might not be communicating or talking or sharing. They're just playing next to each other, That's that first step before they begin to start interacting. And sometimes it might require adults to support and help them to understand what that can look like and to model that process of playing together. There's a great website here from Catholic Schools New South Wales called Learning Through Play that has some really wonderful resources that you can refer to. It's all around different ways in which you can engage to help children become more confident and engage in new experiences and environments, because children learn as they discover, create, wonder, imagine, and reflect. So we'll post that link in the chat for you to refer to. It's a wonderful resource. There are so many different things that you already have at home for play-based learning. So it's not about going out and buying things from a shop. You know, any kind of dress-up clothes, mum and dad's clothes that, you know, don't fit anymore or are ready to go into the hand-me-down box. Dramatic play can be such a fun way of play-based learning with a child. Having loose parts available that might be around the house, you know, some soft stones, the round smooth stones that might be in the garden, old cardboard boxes, empty tissue boxes, pegs, encourages imagination and creativity without any kind of limitations or structures like specifically bought toys like toy cars or little toy shops and things like that. So finding ways to be creative with lots of different things that you can find around the house or in the garden. It's really important to get down to your child's level with your play when you're playing with them, sitting on the floor or sitting at the table together, to be able to talk while you're playing and ask them questions to engage their curiosity and creativity and see what they're thinking about what they're doing. And asking those really open-ended questions. Oh, can you tell me what that does? Or how do we make that work? Or what do you think we might do next? Especially when they've made something creative. So getting them to unpack that for you by asking those questions around what it does and how you can make it work too. And there are also, I guess, a lot of things to think of, and this can begin from really a child as young as a toddler. So having that flexible routine, which allows time for play. Now we know for some children, routine is really, really important, but having some time built into a part of your day, which allows for that time to play together. Having some open-ended art materials, things like Play-Doh, paints, felts, even simply a container with water and a paintbrush and the concrete path outside on a sunny day, or the bricks on your house and painting away. The water's going to dry really quickly, but it's a really great way to engage in something creative and fun. And use a whole lot of household items. Kids love to build forts. We've built forts since we were all little kids, I'm sure. Using the old pots and pans and some sheets and furnitures to build cubby houses and forts and create their own little home within the home. And the importance of really having screen off time and time off devices to reduce those background noises and discussions, and prioritizing that play and conversation is really important for a child's development. So we know the importance, and I know a couple of people already spoken about, you know, routine, and specifically when children start school. Schools have very specific routines as well, and there are adjustments that we put in place to support. But having a good routine helps your child to predict what's going to happen next and reduces some of the anxiety they can experience. So if they know, well, first we're going to do this and next we're going to do that, even that simple language, at first let's do this, next we're going to do that, they know what's coming and they're more prepared. The anxiety is reduced. You can have simple visual pictures for both a morning and an afternoon routine so they know what to expect from their day. You can use these as photos or video models of your child doing this task. Could be just, you know, in the morning, we're going to get up, we're going to eat breakfast, we're going to get dressed, get our bag, go in the car and go to school. So starting to prepare them for what the school day might look like, even when it's preschool. And having a weekly visual schedule that helps your child know what's happening during the week, if they're going to therapies or swimming lessons or art lessons, whatever it might be. If they know what each day of the week is going to bring in advance, that also helps to reduce a lot of the anxieties. They know what's coming. If there is a day when there's going to be a change in the regular routine, kids really thrive in routine. And when that routine suddenly changes and it's a surprise to them, that can create some distress sometimes, especially young kindergarten children when they're tired after a busy day and that cognitive load, all of that learning has just created that mental fatigue. So really ensuring that they know when things are going to change, that are especially things that are of importance to them. And try and stick to a regular time for waking up and going to bed, especially in those beginning days of kindergarten. As the previous presenters have mentioned, kids come home really, really fatigued in those first few weeks, and some of them have been so used to having naps when they get really tired during the school day, and it's a lot to take in. There's a lot of stimulus around them in a school day. So having a routine around bedtime and going to bed really at a really good time and making sure we wake up at a reasonable time really helps. And I guess one thing around reading together every day with your child, make it a daily habit. It can be a book simply full of pictures that doesn't have to be words. They don't need to come to school reading books or reading words, but simply the act of sitting together to enjoy a book is a really great skill for a young person to have, just simply knowing how the pages turn. So reading is a really great skill.
5 minutes.
Thank you. We really encourage parents and carers to work on promoting the development of some independence to allow your young children to become participants in their own learning. It really helps to build that sense of self-identity, self-esteem, and confidence. It allows them to feel a sense of control over what's happening in and around them, and especially around times of stress, change, and uncertainty. So building independence is really around breaking down some tasks into smaller steps. If you give 3-4 directions in one go, they're only going to remember the last one you've said. So chunk those things down to smaller things, give them 1 instruction at a time. If they can manage that, give them 2 instructions at a time and just build up slowly. Support your child in following those repeated routines. Rehearse and practice skills at home in a fun way. Create learning stories on your iPad around what a successful completion of a task looks like, and really focus on praising and rewarding and specifically the praising when they are successful at completing things. Really important for school. I know this was spoken about before. The best way to create some reduce anxiety for a child is have them practice wearing their uniform, practice doing up the zippers and buttons, and make really simple clothing choices that it's easy for your child to dress and undress with limited help where possible. So elastic waistbands for the pants, the Velcro shoes, especially for kindies, because tying shoelaces, especially when they've been walking through kindy bathrooms, is not always fun for parents or for teachers. And it creates that sense of independence for a young person. For personal care, just around washing and drying their hands, not wasting water, how we blow our nose, practicing what that looks like, sneezing into our elbows, and being able to use the toilet on their own and with independence where possible. And we do understand sometimes children need a little support when they're transitioning in, and that's okay too. Eating, we've talked about that a little bit, but selecting, I guess, foods to eat and letting them know what to eat at what break time, and having food that's easy and packaging that's really easy for them to manage and unwrap. But please know that I've not met a teacher yet that's not willing to help a child open a packet of chips at a break time if they need it. And the importance, I guess, of how to eat themselves and dispose of their rubbish and scraps, because that's one thing we like to make sure they know how to do, where the bin is, so that we've got a clean space that we're working with in schools. And I guess teaching them skills of organisation and responsibility. Encourage them to pack away when it's time to pack away, and obviously assist where it's needed, but encouraging them that this is a responsibility that they can start taking on is really important. Find ways to include them in jobs around the house, and have a look for those signs of readiness. If they're asking questions or trying to get involved in household activities, that's their way of showing you that they've got a little bit more independence and they're ready for a little bit more responsibility. Have them practice packing their bag and putting all their belongings in, because little kindy bags are quite big. They could almost fit your child in some instances, but how to put some of those materials in can be tricky at the end of the school day. So practice in doing that and carrying their bag is really important. And I guess teaching them how to identify their own belongings by using names or key symbols. So those special little bag tags that might have their initial on it, or a special picture that you've chosen together. And practicing writing their name or identifying their name is really good. If they know what their name looks like, they might not be able to write it, but if they know what it looks like when they're looking for their jackets, because I know as mums and dads, we don't like to be buying new uniforms constantly. So I guess for me, it's really important that just encourage those independence by encouraging them to take reasonable risks, step back and allow them to have an opportunity to problem solve and resolve conflict, be patient as they challenge themselves with new tasks and responsibility. It might take longer, but practice and repetition is key in developing independence for your child. And we know there's a lot of things with the social emotional development and social skills. So turn taking can be really tricky, encouraging them to wait and teaching them skills to be able to best communicate their needs and emotions and to ask for what they help when they need it. We know sometimes children become really distressed when they can't communicate verbally with what they need. So finding strategies around deep breathing maybe is what helps, or your child might prefer some sensory tools to help them regulate. I guess one big one too, build resilience, teaching them that they don't always have to win or they don't always have to be first. That's okay. And an important one, I think, is really understanding why it's important to follow rules and instructions to stay within boundaries, especially when we're considering safety, because priority is always wanting your child to be safe when they are at school. And we have additional information that Belinda will share if you would like it around what the enrolment process is for CSPD schools, around enrolment of students with disability and complex needs. I know the previous presenters have spoken before about how critical it is to share information so that we can appropriately plan and support transition for students. Having all the information is key because that's the best way to guarantee a more successful transition for your child. So thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you very much, Megan. And thank you for stressing the importance of play. Families, yes, play is play and it's fun. And you may, obviously we want that, as Megan said, balance of just free play, free choice, etc. When teachers talking about play, though, we're very intentional about the play that we set up for the children. So early childhood teachers, as well as primary school teachers, are very intentional on the skills they are wanting children to build while they are playing. So it's doing the job without knowing you're doing the job. So thank you for reinforcing that, Megan. And for the independent skills as well, we know that there's a lot of skills involved. So obviously you're going to cater your child to do things themselves at their levels. And if they need further help, please share that with your school. But getting them to practice as much. Sometimes as a parent, you want to do things for your child, and sometimes we're doing them a favor. But overall, teaching them to do things themselves is for their benefit. If they've got the skill and they're capable, then yes, teach them to be independent, because although the teachers are always available, there's also still a lot of children. So if everyone's wanting the same help at the same time, teachers have to juggle. So as much as they can do, yes, is important. So thank you for that, Megan. Thank you to all the presenters for the valuable information that you have shared tonight. There was one question, and I know that Victoria has answered that, but I'm going to visit that again, and Peter and I have some extra links to share. But before we do that, I'm going to ask Peter to launch poll number 2 for the evening, and that's for us to see if there has been an increase in your confidence for tonight. There's actually 2 questions here, both short, but yes, please answer the questions that Peter has just launched. Yay, we've got the very confidence. Excellent. Yay. So thanks to the presenters and what you've heard tonight, we've got less in the confident than what we started with. And we've got no families who are not confident, and we've got families who are very confident. So I'm really glad for you families. Obviously, you've received enough information for you to shift, or even if you've remained the same, I'm really glad we haven't got any jump down from confident to not confident. We've definitely had an increase. So that's really good. Thank you, presenters, for sharing that information and getting the families up there. And then there's do you feel you have enough information? I'm going to share those results. yes, and some are still not feeling that they have enough information. So for those who are not feeling that they have, please feel free to reach out to Early Ed to see if there is anything else that we can do to help you in that process, in that journey. Thank you very much, families, for answering that. Peter, if we could give the feedback link, and I will also share screen for the QR code. And this is for a feedback survey. Try from current slide. So families, this is for you to tell us how tonight's presentation went. And it's for us to see that information and see what other information you suggest and provide us so that we can navigate future webinars for families in the following years as well. So please take a moment to do that survey while we address the question, and a family does have their hand raised as well. So I will be asking them to use the chat or the Q&A because I can't actually speak to you through the webinar settings. I'm sorry. Hopefully you've all got that QR code. And Peter, have you managed to put yes, you've got the link is also in the chat as well. Thank you, Peter.
I think we can allow the participants to talk by clicking. Do you want to
Okay.
try
Do you want to do that, Peter?
for that question? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Ask to unmute. You can unmute if you would. Yep. Okay. Did you
When
have a
you're ready.
question?
Oh yeah, sorry. The question was I actually accidentally missed the first half of this because I was putting my kids to sleep, funnily enough. But is the recording available for later viewing at all, or?
Yes, sorry, Peter. Go. I saw you were on mute. Yes, it is available. So if you wanted to email services at Early Ed, Peter, if you don't mind putting that email back in the chat so that in case it was missed while he was putting the children to bed, you can email us and request that recording. And if you wanted any handouts of the slides, you could request that as well.
Oh, that'll be great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. And the question that we had in the chat, there's two questions further to the one that was already answered, but one family was asking about social and emotional regulation skills and what red flags might look like for that. This particular family is asking in relation to children with anxiety or ADHD. So Victoria has answered that question. Thank you very much, Victoria, talking about getting advice from the preschool as well as from the school, potentially external health providers as well, paediatrician, psychologist if necessary. Peter has put some links to that answer as well. I don't know how accessible that is to other participants, Peter, so I wonder if you could put that in the chat. I'm going to put some links in the chat as well. I just want to make note, though, that the links that we're putting in the chat are developmental checklists, and they have flags as well that you might be able to observe in your child to determine whether or not it's worth taking further exploration into your child's development. But the developmental checklists are for neurotypical and for typically developing children. So please, if you have children who are out of neurotypical or typically developing range, don't be put off by these checklists. They are just a framework or a guideline for you to use to see what the typical flow of development is and where your child sits in relation to that. So I've put some links and Peter has put some links. I hope you may have to copy and paste. I don't know if my links have worked. So Peter, there's another, oh no, the participants drop their hand, but I will have a look at other questions. So, hi everyone, I have a question. Recently moved a new house. I only have a lease agreement, however, I do not have other proof like utility bills and a 100-point check. Could anyone provide me what I'm supposed to do? As I've heard from school, that orientation program is going to start soon. So I'm guessing that's in regards to going to your catchment area. Would any of the school representatives, any of our panelists like to speak to that?
From the department point of view,
Yeah.
have you contacted your local school first of all and filled out the application? I would believe the lease agreement with all your personal identification should support that 100 points. Yeah. Anyone else wish to add?
I think that's right too. That information, I think the 100 points would come from other documentation besides having anything like rates. Yep.
The lease is quite a lot of points, I believe.
May be helpful to have your license changed over, but certainly don't miss orientation. I would talk to the local school about both of those things. You know, can we start with the orientation while we get those 100 points together?
Can I also add that sometimes if you have contacted the utility company to connect power, like to put into your name, an email that identifies that they have connected or they are going to connect is evidence that you are connecting to that address. So that sort of helps until you have your first bill.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing that information, and I hope that helps the family. We have another question. How does applications for NDIA work, please? I know the NDIA should go through the local government area, such as LifeStart, but the wait being 6 months. Is there any other way to access support, such as social and communication delays? So anybody can answer that. I'd just like to start with potentially a Medicare health plan. I think it's called a chronic disease
management plan. I don't know why it's got that name, but yes.
Exactly. It's a horrible name. So yes, thank you. It is the chronic disease management plan through your GP, where if there are one, I think, or more areas of concern, they can give you a start of 5 sessions to an allied health, such as a speech therapist, OT, or psychologist. Megan, am I on the right line there?
That is correct. And then they will combine, because generally it will take 2 of those sessions to do a formal assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And that information can be used then to determine access to things like LifeStart. So,
Excellent.
but they can also, through the therapist, determine that they can send something back to your GP that can determine you might be entitled to more through Medicare based as opposed to NDIS while you're waiting to access the NDIS.
Fantastic. Thank
But
you, Megan.
sooner rather than later would be
Yes.
ideal in seeking that support through a GP.
Yes, thank you for that. Other things that you can access are local play groups, call supports, library sessions. You can contact your local council to see who your local Start Strong partners are, and see if they can provide any supports with you. Local community health nurses, like I said, those health visits don't need to stop at 18 months. They can continue for every age, every year of the child's life. And Peter and I have put the links into the developmental checklists of the Blue Book, which is what your health nurse will go through with you and guide you along with some strategies as well there. Like we said, Early Ed has free resources that we can offer depending on where you are. You might want to attend the Early Ed office, or you might want some online support if you're eligible. So please feel free to contact Early Ed as well with questions you might have about your child's development. So I think we have answered all questions. I want to thank our valuable presenters for their time and wonderful information that they have shared this evening. It's like we couldn't do this without any of these presenters. And I want to thank our families for being here tonight. We hope that what we've shared with you has supported your journey in preparing your child. I love seeing all the little hearts and the hand clapping come up. Thank you very much, families. Thank you, Peter, for your support on preparing tonight as well. And you cover a lot of ground there that we don't always see, so thank you. And good luck to all of you on your journey.
And thanks, Belinda, for being our host.
My pleasure, Peter. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Good
Enjoy
night,
your
everyone.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.